What is going on, guys? I'm back with another video, and there's so much news to cover. Late last night on Friday, Trump dropped a bunch of tweets. So we got a bunch of news with China, the trade war, the stock market, 2020 election. So let's get right into it. What I wanted to start out with was the 600-point drop in the market. If we look at the past, really the past year, you can see it's kind of like it keeps crashing in the plunge protection team, man. They keep coming in to pump it back up. So let's get into Trump hikes tariffs on Chinese goods and retaliation to trade war escalation. So earlier in the day, so Friday typically is a slow news day, slow market day. And then early in the day, Trump comes out of nowhere and he says, like, I demand, all U.S. companies to stop doing business in China. And people are like, what? You can't do that. But Trump was really giving a warning, and he even said in the tweet, like, I'm going to, more news this afternoon on what's going to happen to China and the trade war, something along those lines. So then this is essentially what he tweeted right here. And just to summarize, starting on October 1st, the $250 billion of goods and products from China currently being taxed at 25% will be taxed at 30%. So essentially, he just increased the tariffs again. And on top of that, the remaining $300 billion of products that are not being taxed right now, he's going to start taxing, which I guess was going to start at September 1st at 10%, and it's now going to be 15%. So that's back on as well. So this is in response to earlier on Friday, China actually imposed a tariff on the U.S. as well. So yeah, here's the tweet thread. Definitely pretty fascinating what's going on. So an unprecedented, shocking proposal. Bank of Europe, Mark Carney urges replacing dollar with Libra-like reserve currency. And this is from Zero Hedge. You guys can check out these articles yourself. So this is the head of the Bank of Europe. He's basically saying, like, yeah, we should replace the U.S. dollar with a Libra-like currency, which is hilarious because I don't think that's going to work. They're too late on it, but maybe replacing the US dollar with something like gold, it's kind of interesting to come from someone that's, in one of these central bank positions. It's a little bit, that makes it way more real, for sure. And then, yeah, Trump, he had like 30 or 40 tweets yesterday. I mean, really kind of crazy, but he had one late last night that most people probably didn't see, and he said, for all the fake news reporters that don't have a clue as to what the law is relative to presidential powers, China, etc., try looking at the Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. Case closed. So I guess that's an act that gives the president a lot of powers, especially in relation to, foreign trade. I mean, that's really the one thing the president can do, anything related to foreign. They basically have control over, like, the military and the economy. So it's definitely, the trade war is ramping up, and I mean, it's getting to a point where it's like one event, yeah, but like just really one event can really get this all tumbling down. And I mean, the market is like just barely holding up. If you look at the Dow Jones, like, yeah, we did have all-time highs, but then it immediately crashed. And actually, the only reason this happened was because there was 100% priced into the market that there was going to be a rate cut, an interest rate cut. So it's kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's a good sign, Yeah, so here's another article from MarketWatch. U.S. stocks hit session lows on Friday as President Donald Trump appeared to mandate in a tweet that U.S. companies make the products at home, and said he would hold a conference in the afternoon to discuss the matter. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, who's the guy? One of the Kudlow was in like Jackson Hole, Colorado, giving a talk there, and he was saying like the economy's so great, but then Trump, like, and the China trade talks are going well, and then later that day Trump is like totally does the opposite and just escalates them even further. So it's like the amount of doublespeak going on is crazy. Oh yeah, and Trump he made such a ridiculous tweet that was just not. He was blaming some guy that no one ever heard of for dropping out of the 2020 presidential election for the crashing market. But it's like, if no one ever heard of him, then why would that You know what I mean? Like, why would that be the cause of the market crashing? I don't know. It just didn't make any sense. It's just like another distraction, I guess. Um, yeah, the losses erased weekly gains for the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, while the Dow was off 0.1%. The Trump statement comes after the Chinese ministry indicated that it was preparing to raise tariffs in two batches on 75 billion in U.S. imports on September 1st and December 15th, which would coincide with the dates that the U.S. is slated to increase tariffs. Um, yeah, so I mean, like silver is what at yearly highs. I don't know. Like it's almost like this trade war could make the recession worse, or Trump is using this as some sort of like 4D chess move to like be able. So now that the tariffs are back on to China, he could take them off, and then that could give a temporary boost to the market. Or it's almost like he's making the trade war worse to force the Federal Reserve to actually cut rates. Because if the trade war just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, then he's going to get the interest rate cuts that he wants, which I guess the Fed isn't listening to him on. Maybe they're part of the deep state, who knows. Uh, so it could be that as well. Trump could actually be doing it just to get the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates faster. So maybe that's Trump's strategy. Is like he's trying to cause the recession to happen and get it done with by the time the election happens. That might be the best strategy at this point because I don't think he could push it off a year at this point. I mean, it's looking like it could crash even like by December of this year, you know. Um, Definitely interesting what's going on. Yeah, so let's take a look at this chart. So it says adverse feedback loop between the Fed and trade policy. So more tariffs lead to economy market weakens. Fed eases economy market strengths. Yeah, so that's exactly what I was saying is like if we have more tariffs then the economy gets weaker, then the Fed will cut interest rates and maybe even quantitative easing, which will, you know, strengthen the economy supposedly, but it doesn't really. It's kind of it's not super effective at this point, but man, Zero Hedge is a pretty great site. Like I've been kind of checking them out for the past couple weeks, and they've got a lot of good info here. They're not a lot of mainstream news covers even. Um, so now we await China's retaliation as Beijing has no choice but to retaliate again in tit-for-tat fashion. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Like Hong Kong, they're still having protests, man. I mean, the airport opened up at least, but it's like they still have protests. Like it seems like every day. Okay, so China is retaliating again for tit-for-tat fashion and is likely to hike the rate on its own tariffs, targeting U.S. goods, which will then prompt Trump to raise tariffs even more, at which point China will retaliate in kind. So it's like this endless feedback loop until eventually all trade between the U.S. and China grinds to a halt, at which point the question is which country will succumb to recession and or social unrest first. It seems like China's already there, and they have like we have like 23 trillion in debt, but they have like 40 trillion in debt. So they're like even worse when it comes to printing money than we are, at least since 2012. Like they had a chance in 2012 where they had like half the debt we did, but now in 7 years they've quadrupled it from 10 trillion to 40 trillion. So I don't know, man. China's like worse off than we are in that stance as far as debt goes. Oh yeah, another thing, people are like, oh yeah, they have our debt and they could sell it, but it's like yeah, like we have their money, like we're the ones that owe them money. So if they flood the market with all our bonds, they destroy that wealth, you know, or any chance of making that money back. So it's like, yeah, it's gonna hurt our economy, but it's gonna hurt their economy just as well. So it's like, you know, it's like not the best strategy. It's like a last ditch effort strategy, really. So meanwhile, the real news this afternoon is that there was still no announcement of currency intervention by Trump. We expect that to come sometime in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Oh yeah, Trump was blaming China as like manipulating the currency because it got to like 7, you know, like every 7 Chinese yen or whatever is worth $1 now, which is like all-time highs. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with that. For sure. Definitely going to be, something might even develop today, tomorrow, Monday. Who knows? But yeah, anyways, that's it for this video, guys. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching.